Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman. Our next guest in the studio is Jeff Peroutka, founder and CEO of Pror Marketing. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
How's it going, everyone?
Good, thanks. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Pror Marketing and what your focus is, and then we'll talk a little bit about the backstory.
Great. Yeah. So Pror Marketing is a white label SEO agency. So what I mean by that is we're basically an SEO agency and we do SEO work for other digital marketing agencies. We basically assist them and we, fuse directly into their already existing infrastructures just to allow them to deliver a superior product to their clients. And that's basically kind of the name of the game. That's what we're in. Yeah.
So I would imagine it's interesting that you phrased it. I hadn't heard that term, white label SEO, but I imagine like anything, there's a lot of people out there that are probably selling it that don't do it very well. And they're probably smart to reach out to somebody that does do it really well and integrate that into their product offerings. I know there's a lot of marketing agencies, ad firms that probably don't have the depth of experience in SEO, and because from a layman's perspective, SEO is constantly changing. Companies are always changing their algorithms. It takes a deep expertise to do it well.
Yeah, it's definitely constantly changing, like you said. Definitely, those companies, they want to find someone that's kind of a student of, the art of SEO, because SEO on a weekly basis, sometimes, Google's changing their algorithm. So it's really important to find someone that, really cares about SEO and really cares about, the newest and greatest and how to implement that, directly onto the client's website.
So how did you move into this field? I know that it's a relatively new endeavor, but you've been in digital marketing for a number of years. And so tell us about that.
Really interesting story. So I've been doing Pror officially for a little over a year now. Basically what I was doing, the way that I got into this back in college, I was actually working for a digital marketing agency doing full service SEO. So I kind of had this little side hobby, this little passion for SEO. But what I was doing for the most part in college was I was starting a little SaaS platform. It was an iPhone app. Basically, it was kind of like Tinder for clothes. It was called Fit. We were really excited on it. Kind of had this machine learning algorithm that understood your style as you swipe more and more and more. So I had this really cool product offering, and basically we're jumping into kind of the data intelligence field because we wanted to basically collect all this fashion data and project fashion trends in the future and all this really cool stuff. But right when COVID-19 hit, it kind of rattled our team. We got split up and it didn't really rub some of us the right way. So it was a really tough time because that was the time when, I was graduating college. So in my head, my dream was, hey, this is, we're going to get venture funded right out the bat. This is my full time out of college. And it was kind of a harsh reality. So basically what I did was I started freelancing through LinkedIn and Upwork, just really put my head down and said, hey, I used to know SEO. It's time to take some more, courses, become the expert, and really, become the student of SEO. And basically from there, I kind of pursued that for a few months, realized that, I was really good at it, eventually became a top rated specialist on Upwork, and said, hey, wow, this is something I could actually, take and turn into a tangible company, and basically started Pror, and I guess the rest is history.
So it is a fascinating story. So now you've officially joined the ranks of serial entrepreneur because you had a startup and you had the challenges associated with that, and you pivoted as the pandemic began. So, Radio Entrepreneurs are all about the lessons of entrepreneurship. So how many, or did any of your teammates join you in Pror, or have they since joined you?
No. So Pror is kind of a little solo venture of mine. I would say one of the things that was really great about my previous startup was that, we had a team of 5. So it was kind of that, constant free flowing ideas. We're constantly thinking of new innovative ways to solve problems, which was really awesome, which is kind of a challenge when it's just you, because sometimes I could kind of get stuck in my head and kind of get, dead set on one certain thing, which is why, we'll oftentimes, bring in advisors or, hire consultants just to make sure that, we get a fresh set of eyes on certain problems that we're dealing with. So I would say, the one big thing that I would always recommend is, collaboration. I think collaboration, there's a ton of value there. And especially, with idea sharing, If you have a good idea and you tell it to enough people and people, begin to share your idea, then, your idea it's good and you should pursue it. So I would say that's my big piece of advice.
So any particular industry verticals that you're focusing on? Anything that you gravitate towards, or has found you and has a strong need? I would imagine the retail space is an area that's always looking to get eyeballs. So
Yeah. I would say naturally, right when COVID-19 started, a lot of the companies that were kind of flocking to us were kind of those institutions that have been doing brick and mortar for 20 years straight, that are a little bit unfamiliar with the e-commerce space. So we were working with a lot of those companies, kind of educating them and saying, hey, this is what SEO is. This is why it's important. This is why it's only going to get more important as years to come. I would say one of the big niches that we focus on besides white label for digital marketing agencies is the cannabis industry. Just because the cannabis industry, I would say it's fairly new. It's, for the most part, they kind of have troubles with marketing on Facebook and Instagram because of kind of the legalities, as you could assume, behind that.
yep.
So for the most part, what they have to do is they have to either focus on influencer marketing or they have to focus on SEO. So that's kind of where we come in. And, we also focus on law firms as well as health companies.
Interesting dichotomy there, law firms and pot purveyors.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting group of
but so what have you learned in terms of working? What are some of the challenges as industries? I mean, obviously you laid out some because of regulatory issues in the cannabis industry, and also to your point, I think people don't recognize the newness of it. I mean, yes, there's infrastructure, but there's certain challenges from a regulatory perspective. But I would imagine also differentiation in the industry is probably somewhat challenging. My bud looks like your bud, or accessories or whatever else they're selling. So what are you doing from an SEO perspective to keep things fresh and to, no pun intended, but make sure that everybody is sort of, your clients are getting their messages out there and continually revamping them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, definitely what it comes down to at the end of the day is really the keyword structure that they're going after. I would say I have, just working in SEO, I have a really weird way of looking at the internet. The way that I look at it is that every website serves a purpose, and basically that purpose is to rank for specific keywords. It's kind of a weird way of looking at things, but for the most part, whenever it comes to cannabis websites, and CBD websites, I kind of say, hey, let's talk a little bit more about your brand. What's your brand essence? What does your brand stand for? The language, what's your value proposition? Why are you better than the rest? And let's try and communicate that and find keywords that we could build around that strategy. And basically, once we create that keyword research strategy, the one big problem with a lot of websites out there, especially startup websites, is the first thing that they're going to write about. Let's say if it's a car blog, they're going to write about what are the best cars in 2020. But the problem is every single website is writing about that exact same blog. Sure, there's a lot of traffic, but there's a lot of competition as well. But SEO tools kind of give us the ability to, really look at some of those keywords, some of those, queries that people are searching for and say, hey, this is something that, is way less competitive, but still has search volume. So those are kind of the quick wins, the low hanging fruit that, we're searching for.
So it's fascinating. So as a solopreneur to some degree, so you probably have your feet in the analytical, but also in the creative. How do you sort of split your brain to be able to manage those pieces of your practice?
It's definitely really tough. I would say, sometimes it's definitely really tough, managing kind of fulfillment as well as, like you said, kind of the analytical spectrum. I would say, one thing with SEO is there's a lot of hats that you have to wear. There's kind of that analytics side, there's kind of that website, almost web dev, where you're kind of speaking, website development language, as well as kind of that creative aspect, like you mentioned. So I would say it is tough to juggle all these different kind of talents at the same time and, be able to communicate them in a cohesive way. I would say that's probably one of the difficulties when it comes to running a full service SEO firm.
Fascinating. Well, I wish you continued success as you move forward with your SEO firm. And if people want to get in touch with you, Jeff, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
LinkedIn. So you can reach out to me by email, Jeff, Jeff at pror.io. I'm really, really popular on LinkedIn. So I'd say for the most part, follow me on LinkedIn, Jeff, Jeff, and then my last name is Peroutka. And yeah.
Excellent. Our guest has been Jeff Peroutka, founder and CEO of Pro Marketing. It's been a real pleasure having you on Radio Entrepreneurs, and we'll have to have you back in the future. And maybe bring on some of your clients, talk about some cases that you've done, things of that nature. Would be really interesting to hear as well.
I'd love it. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And we'll be right back with another guest on Radio Entrepreneurs.